Hi, uh, trying to start chapter 2 of the video of how science reveals the reveals God's creativity. And so when you want to look at the wonders of God, you can look at the endless mysteries of the cosmos or of life. But if you want to look at it in a much more intimate way, just wake up in the morning and look at a sunrise and feel the warmth of the sun, or to take a breath of air, or even take a drink of water, because this is the intimacy that God, our Father, and us as children of God have are living on this earth, this beautiful blue planet that God created for us, a home that He created for us. It's sort of like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and there's no place like home. And God made a Garden of Eden for Adam and Eve. But in essence, the whole world, our whole planet, is our Garden of Eden. It was a place created just for us to live. And it comes out that the incredible or incredulous wonder of this creation is that we have the planet that is called sometimes by the Goldilocks principles called the just right planet. It's also called the privileged planet. And there is a whole bunch of conditions that scientists label as fine tuning to try to explain this creation. And I'll talk a little bit more about the fine tuning, but scientists really have no idea how this came about. They don't have explanations for anything, nor do they even try really hard to answer that question of how we live on this Goldilocks, just right, privileged planet. And they have come up with this one explanation. It's called the anthropic principle. And this is the so-called philosopher type scientist, where he says that the observation of the universe must be compatible with conscious and sapient life that observes it. Basically, it's sort of a philosophy that kind of says that we know it's possible to exist because we exist. It's a lot more metaphysical than science usually is, rather than the physics, the metaphysics, and basically a philosophical concept that's in a sense more science fiction than it is science. But it seems to be the best explanation that they can come up with. And it's kind of a hard thing for me to understand, because science is not supposed to be like this. Science is supposed to look for theories and the most probable type or the most possible type explanations for everything. And they really fall very, very short when they try to explain our existence on this planet or the existence of this planet. What they have tried to do is they've tried to look out in the vast cosmos that exist, looking for these so-called exoplanets. And there are 4 minimum requirements of those exoplanets. It's basically that it has to have temperature correct, it has to have water, it has to have an atmosphere, and it has to have an orbit that's stable. And they call this kind of the planet that exists in the habitable zone, a zone that has these, that is so at such a distance from their sun or this alien sun that it can support this kind of conditions. And these are kind of what astrophysics, astrobiologists, and people that are looking for life, and it's kind of a looking for life as we know it. It's these so-called exoplanets, and it's a sort of a exobiology that they're looking for. So when they found one this week, in fact, that they explained, and it's a planet, it's a terrestrial planet, meaning it's a rocky planet, and it's within this habitable zone, and they're all excited because they seem to have indications of it having an atmosphere. And this is circling what they call a red dwarf planet, which red dwarf is one of the most prevalent type suns that exist. It's circling a red dwarf sun. The red dwarf sun is about 71% of all the suns that we know of in the whole, well, at least in our galaxy, the Milky Way. We are living under what's called a yellow sun. But the red dwarf sun has characteristics that make it kind of hard to understand why they are searching so closely for this, because a red dwarf is a much smaller and cooler sun than our sun is. And what that means that the habitable zone that this planet circles that sun has to be so much closer than our sun than it would require. And what it means is that these solar flares and X-rays and UV radiation that's pushed out would really destroy any atmosphere that we know of, and especially oxygen in the atmosphere. So it's not just having the right orbit around the sun or at the right distance around the sun. It really has to be the right type of sun too. And at the end of that article it says, it seems more and more that our sun is just one of those perfect planets for us. And that's what really exists. We just have this sun that's perfect for us, and we have this planet that's perfect for us for our life. You need atmosphere. All animals that we know of, land animals, need oxygen to breathe. The plants need carbon dioxide, which they convert to oxygen so that we have breathable oxygen. But that oxygen also creates what we call the ozone layer, and so that ozone layer is O3, and that's what protects us from this radiation. The radiation that would be within the red dwarfs would be so intense that the atmosphere could not protect it against that. So it's a very unique type characteristics in many areas that God has created for us to make our planet livable. The temperature, of course, is important. If it's too cold, it's going to freeze everything, and if it's too hot, it's going to boil everything. I live in Palm Springs, 122 degrees recently, and it's really not very livable. But you can understand why we have a certain range that life needs to exist on, and especially our life, us. Water, of course, they use the habitable zone to define that the temperature has to be right so that water will be, or H2O will be in the liquid form. And water has some really basic characteristics that are unbelievable. I mean, it is a creation, a miraculous creation by God in itself, in that water is the universal solvent. And most of our reactions, chemical reactions that maintain our life, take place in water or by water. It provides the catalyst, and there's a whole bunch of characteristics. I might get into those when I talk more about the fine tuning that exists. But the temperature controls the idea of water and atmosphere. We have an atmosphere, and of course our atmosphere has to include oxygen for us, and that's why at the beginning you take that breath of oxygen, and if you take one, you don't take the one after that, you're going to die. So you need that breath of oxygen. God provided that oxygen in the air for you to breathe. And also water. I don't know if you know, but you can't go more than 3 days without water. You will die. So water is such a critical part. This orbit or stable orbit is based on the scientist idea that they have to have a stability or a longevity. They use time as an element to explain the evolution of everything. So if there's not something that's stable and provides a place for life to grow and evolve, then they're not thinking that it's a habitable planet. So what we really are looking at is the idea that science is trying to describe this Goldilocks principle or the privileged planet principle or this fine tuning, and it's coming very short of that. And what God has provided for us is this wonderful planet that sustains our life. And there are so many characteristics besides this four minor requirements or minimum requirements that the astrobiologists are looking for. And they found in, I found an article in 2016 in August that said there are over 1,000 exoplanets seen now. So this is a year later. I'm not sure how many they have, but I know they find new exoplanets all the time. And it's a beautiful discovery. It's a discovery that, I hope Carl Sagan is right in some sense when he says that the universe is so vast. This is in a book he wrote called Contact, and this is paraphrased, but basically the universe is so vast that it would be such a waste of space if there was not other intelligent beings in that, living in that huge cosmos that exists. So basically, we're looking at something that is so wonderful for me because it is a very intimate thing to have a home that God created, and I will talk about some of these other wonders of God's creation, but in actuality, the complexity and beauty of what God has created, the beauty of nature and what we can see, and how our Garden of Eden is just the perfect place for us. It really helps me to know that I have a loving Father who has provided a home for me, and his credibility is outstanding because of this. And I'll talk more about some of this fine tuning that exists in the future. Thank you.